See, the Sadducees, and it's Sadducee, as opposed to the Pharisees, they thought that they didn't need to treat anybody good because they felt like God was kind of an absentee owner, left them on their own devices to kind of protect or watch out after themselves. And that's why they felt that gave them a permission slip to treat everyone else like crap. The Pharisees, on the other hand, did give lip service to treating their neighbors as themselves, but they didn't do it. So they were guilty of hypocrisy. The Sadducees were guilty of unbelief. And of course, the priests, the high priests, were of the Levites, and they were the Sadducees. Verse 13, he said unto me, turn ye that again, pardon me, let me start over there. Verse 13, he said unto me, turn thee yet again, and ye shall see greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the house of the Lord, which was towards the north, and there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Now, Tammuz was known to be a fertility god. Tammuz's birthday was allegedly December the 25th. So it might give you some pause about trying to assign Christ a birthday when we don't really know his birthday at all. But what were these women weeping for? Well, I can guess if they're praying and weeping to a fertility god, they probably have barren wombs. But rather than to pray to God, who can open the womb, they're praying to Tammuz. Then he said unto me, have you seen this, O son of man? Turn you yet again, and you shall see greater abominations than these. And he brought me to the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple, between the porch and the altar, there were about 5 and 20 men, with their backs towards the temple of the Lord, and their faces towards the east, and they worshipped the sun towards the east. So as I said a couple of weeks ago, the entrance to the temple faced the east, so you would see the morning sunrise. If you turned your back to go in the temple, you're turning your back on the sun, which is exactly the reason the temple was positioned in that spot, is you had to precisely turn your back to the sun, because sun worship was prevalent all through ancient times. They were contaminated with this in bondage in Egypt to worship of Ra, the sun god. And he said unto me, have you seen this, O son of man? Is it a light thing in the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence, and they have returned to provoke me to anger. And lo, they put the branch to their nose. And I don't have time to get into all of it today, but that is a reference to, I believe it's Asherah wood, and that's a reference to phallus worship. Verse 18, therefore I will deal in my fury, mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity, though they cry in mine ears with a loud voice. So they have turned their back on God, and God has no alternative but to turn them over to their own lustful, seared hearts. God doesn't harden hearts. Man hardens his heart by rejection of light, and when their conscience becomes so seared, God has no other alternative but to turn them over to their own devices. All right, so I just wanted to touch on that a little bit, and I'm going to get into the Roman Catholic Church here. The Roman Church is an attempt to reestablish the old theocracy of Israel with the accompanying sanctuary service. The Catholic Church has taken over the essential rituals from Judaism with certain ceremonies from paganism. It has established a sanctuary service with priests, a high priest, which would be basically the Pope, He claims infallibility. He claims to be the vicar of God. He claims the prerogative to forgive sin. They have Levites, singers, teachers. It has a sacrificial service called with the accompanying ritual and offering of incense. It has its high days, patterned after the Israelite custom. Its candles, its altar of incense, its table with the bread and its high altar. The laver with the holy water is in evidence. The daily Mass is observed. The parallel between the old Israelite religion and the Roman Catholic Church is almost, at the time of the writing of this was about around 1947 at the writing of this, it's complete. The church has basically hijacked the old Mosaic, Levitical sacrifice system because we're eliminating the need for Jesus Christ. Why do you need Jesus when you're praying to Mary? The Pope is infallible. Oh, you've got the saints to pray to. You can see how this is a house of cards that is built on a terrible foundation. It's a rival system. It's a competitor. We know that Christ, when he entered into the Holy of Holies, the sanctuary in heaven, it was a sanctuary made without the hands of men. And he enters in with his own blood more efficient than the blood of animals. The blood of animals could never forgive sin, really. It was all symbolic. It could never cleanse from sin. It was all symbolic of Jesus' death. And so Jesus is our high priest after the order of Melchizedek, because Jesus on his own, being from the tribe of Judah, could not naturally be a high priest. So for the high priest system to commence in heaven, the earthly high priest system on this earth had to end. All of this would not be very important were it not for the fact that it constitutes an attempt to obscure the real work of Christ in the sanctuary above. When the Old Testament period closed is when Christ began his work in the heavenly sanctuary. It was God's intent that the sanctuary services on earth should cease. And the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And later, the entire temple completely destroyed, signifying the cessation of those services on earth. And as far as we know, they haven't been kicked up since. Now, the Jewish people would like to, the Hasidic Jews, the Orthodox Jews, would like to set up the animal sacrifice system again, which would be a total abomination to God, since he already died for him and he's not going to die again. Okay, so I will move on here to something that I think is kind of eye-opening. Many Protestants suppose that the Catholic religion is unattractive and that its worship is a dull, meaningless round of ceremony. Here they make a mistake. While Romanism is based on deception, it's not coarse or clumsy imposture. The religious service of the Roman Church is most impressive. Its gorgeous display and solemn rites fascinate the senses of the people and silence the voice of reason and conscience. The eye is charmed. Magnificent churches, tapestry, candles, stained glass windows, imposing processions, golden altars, jeweled shrines, choice paintings, and exquisite sculpture appeal to the beauty and its ambiance. The ear is also captivated. The music is unsurpassed. The rich notes and the deep-toned organ swells through the lofty domes and pillared aisles of her grand cathedrals. and it cannot fail to impress the mind with awe and reverence. But this outward splendor and display of pomp and ceremony, it only mocks the longings of the sin-sick soul. The people who are really coming there because their soul is sick, what are they getting besides a lot of beauty and a lot of wonderful music? Would Christ come in such a manner? It is evidence of outward and inward corruption. The religion of Christ needs not such attractions to recommend it to the high shining of the cross. True Christianity appears so pure, so lovely, that no external decorations can enhance its true worth. It is the beauty of holiness and the meek, quiet spirit, which is the true value to God. Pomp and ceremony has a seductive, bewitching power. As the poor peasant entered into these surroundings, they literally began to see the entrance into the church as the gate of heaven. So if they were asked to empty their pockets to get a loved one out of purgatory, or get a loved one out of hell into purgatory, more rightly stated, and of course there is no such thing as purgatory, the indulgences, the other things that they extorted money off the back of poor peasants. But if that's what the church requested, that's what you did. And most of these peasants couldn't read or write, much less read Latin. The Bible was kept in Latin with purpose to keep the people in ignorance and superstition. So whatever the church said, that was gospel. And if you went against church teachings, you would be thrown in a dungeon. If you didn't recant, you might be stretched at a rack, tortured in some manner. And if all else failed, and you were making inroads among other people's belief systems, you might be burned at the stake. Would Christ serve in such a manner? So ask yourself a question. With all this pomp and ritual and ceremony and procession and the head attire and the clothing and the things that go on, ask yourself a question. Is the servant greater than the master? And this same question should be asked of any of your prosperity gospel ministries. Whether it's this minister that wants a private jet, or this certain preacher in Houston that lives in a house so big that him and his wife and 2 teenage children at the time had like 17,000 square feet apiece to live in. Wretched excess. All that stuff needs liquidated and sold and put into the ministry and the cause of Jesus Christ. What did Christ tell Peter? If the church believes that they're built on the rock Peter, which Peter was just one of the building stones. He wasn't the rock the church was to be built on. Christ was the rock the church was to be built on. But what did Christ ask of Peter? Do you love me, Peter? This is after Peter denied him 3 times. Do you love me, Peter? Well, yes, Lord. Feed my sheep. Do you love me, Peter? Well, yes, Lord, I love you. Feed my flock. do you love me, Peter? By about the third time Christ is asking Peter, do you love me? He's getting a little uncomfortable. But you got to remember, he denied Christ 3 times and with swear words and profane words to emphasize the point. I don't know this man. And now Christ is going to receive him back into the flock, but he asks him 3 times, do you love me? Feed my sheep. Does that mean sit over behind walls in the Sistine Chapel with Michelangelo paintings on the domes of the chapel and all the sculpture and tapestry and the beauty and the stained glass and all this beauty that they are surrounded by? Would Christ live in that on earth? But yet the servant seems to think that he is better than the master. But these stained glass windows, kind of interestingly, were kind of like, well, I don't want to say MTV. I don't want to equate it down to something like that. But these series of stained glass windows taught lessons to the peasants, stories in the Bible. So they basically got their information of the images that was portrayed in the stained glass. And again, the church filled its coffers overflowing on the backs of indulgences and the made-up doctrine of purgatory. So, need to get Mac on his way today. So we're going to cut it a little short today and let you know that I'll probably be back 2 weeks from today with another message for you. But for today, we will wrap it up. So until next time.
Thank you, Frank. The Verse Thomas. We appreciate your show every other week. You can find this show at The View from a Pew on the website called theviewfromapew.com, or you can go to mugbyjesus.com. Either way you go, we thank you for listening, and thanks for loving Jesus.
Divine Truth Christian Store, where you'll find more.